You ever get that spark, that late-night idea for a business that just feels like it could change everything? So many of us have that dream, that little voice telling us to build something of our own. But for most of us, it just stays a dream. Well, today we're going to try and change that. I'm talking about that feeling when you're right on the edge of starting, but then this wave of doubt just washes over you. You're not alone in that, at all. In fact, that hesitation, that feeling of being completely stuck, is pretty much the most common part of the journey. But what if that feeling is just based on a few simple misunderstandings? Do any of these sound familiar? Yeah. According to Noah Kagan's research, these are the exact stories almost everyone tells themselves when they're about to start something new. But here's the secret. These aren't the real roadblocks. Not even close. That's right. Every single one of those excuses is just a mask. They're hiding two deeper, much more fundamental fears that are the real source of that paralysis. And once you can actually see them for what they are, you can finally start to move past them. So here they are. First up, the fear of starting. This is that little voice inside that whispers, just one more book, or one more online course, one more perfect plan. It's the paralysis of endless preparation. And second, there's the fear of asking. This is that gut-wrenching terror of hearing the word no. It stops us cold from asking for the sale, asking for help, or even asking for that very first dollar. So how in the world do we fight back against these two giants? Well, it's not about being fearless. It's about having a totally different way of approaching the whole process of building something new. And it all starts by fundamentally shifting how you think about taking that very first step. Most of us are taught to have a perfect bulletproof plan before we even take a single step. But successful creators, they do the exact opposite. They kind of leap first and then figure out the landing on the way down. They prioritize real-world action over just sitting around and speculating. And this brings us to this really powerful tool, the now, not how principle. So the next time you find yourself stuck thinking about how to do something perfectly, just stop. Instead, ask yourself, what is one tiny version of this I can do right now? So maybe it's not build an entire website, but it's buy a domain name. It's not write a whole book, but write the first paragraph. That one small action is what creates momentum and actually shows you the path forward. And to conquer that fear of asking, you have to completely reframe what rejection even means. Noah Kagan tells this great story about his dad, who taught him to set rejection goals. The goal wasn't to get a yes, it was to collect 100 no's. Why? Because he knew that on the path to 100 rejections, getting a yes was basically inevitable. Rejection wasn't a failure to him, it was a progress bar. Each no was just one step closer. Okay, so we've tackled the mindset, we're ready to act now, we're not afraid of rejection anymore. But where do we point all this newfound energy? Where do we find a business idea that's actually worth pursuing? Well, the answer is way simpler than you might think. See, most people start with what's called a founder-first approach. They get some cool idea in the shower, they spend months building it in secret, and then they hope someone will want to buy it. The successful approach is the complete reverse, customer first. You don't start with an idea, you start with a person and their problem. You find a really painful problem that a group of people is already desperate to solve and, importantly, willing to pay for. This leads to this beautifully simple three-step process. First, find a real, painful problem. Second, design a simple, no-frills solution. And third, and listen, this is the absolute game changer, ask people to pay you for that solution before you've built a single thing. That's called validation, and it is the fastest way to know if you're actually on the right track. That massive mountain you see in front of you, the one called launch a business, it's a mirage. The only real hill you need to climb right now is getting one single person, just one customer, to give you money for your solution. That's it. Everything else comes after that first validation. In fact, you can start even smaller, like way smaller. The dollar challenge is a super powerful first experiment. Can you ask one person for just $1 as an investment in your future business? It sounds almost ridiculously simple, right? But actually doing it proves you can conquer both the fear of starting and the fear of asking all in one go. It's the tiny spark that can light the entire fire.
And that action, that simple ask, that is the dividing line. It's everything.
So, you've done it. You found a problem, you validated a solution, and you have your first paying customer. You should absolutely take a moment and celebrate that. It's huge. But what comes next? What's the real long-term goal for a one-person business? The real goal is to evolve. You need to shift from being a founder who does all the hands-on work to becoming an architect who designs the system. Your true mission is to build a business that works for you, not just a job that you work in. You use tools, automation, and processes to handle the day-to-day, which frees you up to think, to create, and to grow. That's how a one-person business truly scales and gives you real freedom.
So, the path is all laid out. It's not about having a perfect idea or a huge budget. It's about taking one small, immediate action. It's about running one tiny experiment. So my question to you isn't just what will yours be? It's what are you going to do today?